Restoration is coming for the children of God, and we will see that today when we look at Zechariah chapters 10 through 14. But first, welcome to Experiencing God, 365 days through the Bible, day 265. So today we finished the book of Zechariah. All right, we're getting close to the New Testament. Now in chapter 10, God promises to strengthen and restore Judah. You know, the prophets have been saying that, even though there's this whole other thing that's happening, right? The prophets have been saying that soundly, that there's restoration coming. Now, God also promises that the true shepherd, the true, capital T, true shepherd is coming, and he will be the cornerstone, right? God condemns the false shepherds, the leaders who have led the people astray, right? They've misled the people, the false prophets, the leaders who've not taught them the law, all these things. He condemns them. And then the Lord declares that he will gather his scattered people and that he will bring them back and he will care for them like a true shepherd. Okay. God will give them enemy over their victories. He will make them mighty warriors. Listen to this in chapter 10, verse 12. By my power, I will make my people strong, and by my authority, they will go wherever they wish. I, the Lord, have spoken. There's freedom, right? Now, chapter 11 continues on with the shepherd theme, but it's kind of a darker chapter, right? This is what it says in chapter 11, verse 17. What sorrow awaits this worthless shepherd who abandons the flock. The sword will cut his arm and pierce his right eye. His arm will become useless and his right eye completely blind. Now, chapter 11 uses symbolic language again to depict God's rejection of Israel because of their unfaithfulness, okay? Zechariah in chapter 11 acts out the role as both a good and a bad shepherd. Now, God tells him to do this. The good shepherd represents God's care for his people, while the foolish shepherd, the bad shepherd, represents what happens when people reject God's leadership. This is what happens when you reject my leadership. Now, in this, when the people reject Zechariah, okay, they pay him 30 pieces of silver. I'm out of water. 30 pieces of silver. Who else was paid 30 pieces of silver? Judas, okay? He was betrayed. Like, he betrayed Jesus, right? They paid him 30 pieces of silver. Like, God tells Zechariah, throw it to the potters. Like, throw it to the potters. And those 30 pieces of silver that Judas has, throw them back to the temple, right? Now, Zechariah in chapter 11, he breaks off two staffs. One staff represents favor and the other staff represents union. When the favor is broken, all right, that means God's covenant was broken with the people, right? That symbolizes that. When the staff of union was broken, that means the unity between Judah and Israel was broken. Now in chapter 12, God declares that Jerusalem will be a burdensome stone. Like, this got a lot to take care of here. But God will defend it. God will defend his people. He says that the nations that attack Jerusalem will be struck down. Listen to this in chapter 12, verse 3. On that day, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock. All the nations will gather against it to try to move it, but they will only hurt themselves. God's power will be seen clearly as he fights for his people. A spirit of grace, I love this, a spirit of grace and supplication will be poured out on the house of David. Now the people will mourn for the one, we see this in chapter 11, chapter 12, they will mourn for the one they have pierced. And this is a prophecy pointing to the Messiah's suffering. Listen to this in chapter 12, verse 10. Then I will pour out my spirit of grace and prayer on the family of David and the people of Jerusalem. They will look on me whom they have pierced and mourn for him as for an only son. They will grieve bitterly for him as for a firstborn son who has died. All right. That's dark too, right? There's a day that's coming there. It's going to be burdensome, but God's going to take care of it. He's going to defend them. He's going to give them a way out. He's going to send his son, right? They're going to mourn for the one that they pierce. But there's a spiritual cleansing coming, right? The spiritual cleansing comes when Jesus comes. The spiritual refinement is coming. And in chapter 12, probably 13, in chapter 13, we see a fountain of cleansing, and it will be opened for sin and impurity. Jesus comes and he opens that fountain for cleansing and for sin to be washed away. Idolatry and false prophecy will be removed from the land. A prophetic word again points to the striking of the shepherd and the sheep. When the shepherd gets struck, right, the sheep scatter. And this echoes what happens with Jesus's crucifixion, right? The people scatter. okay? And a remnant of survivors will be refined by the fire, symbolizing spiritual purification. Now, the last chapter of Zechariah, this chapter describes the day of the Lord, okay? It's this final climactic day of the Lord when the nations gather against Jerusalem. You know, there's chaos in the world, and God will personally intervene as these nations come against Jerusalem, okay? He will intervene. His feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. It's a prophetic message of Jesus' return, right? The living waters will flow from Jerusalem, and the Lord will be king over all the earth. We saw that with the new temple, right? We saw that. There's water flowing out of that. It's going to touch everything. Living waters will flow from Jerusalem. The enemies of Jerusalem will be struck with the plague, and survivors will worship the true God. This chapter ends with a vision of holiness restored. Holiness restored, because Jesus comes back, right? Even everyday items will be holy to the Lord. What stood out to you today? To me, it's this. Jesus, the true shepherd, right? He's coming back. He's coming back. And like Zechariah says in chapter 14, verse 9, and the Lord will be king over all the earth. On that day, there will be one Lord, and his name alone will be worshiped. Yo, he's coming back, and he alone will be worshiped. He is so good. Give him all the glory. Like, comment, share, subscribe. God sees you. He loves you. He has a great plan for your life. I pray the Holy Spirit ministered to you today through this. Tomorrow, we're going to get into the book of Esther, chapters 1 through 5. See you there.